Hello, everybody. This is the Old Henderson Real News Show coming from Jackson, Mississippi, the #1 state in the nation. And I want you to know that things will get better in Mississippi. Even being #1, we still are not #1 at the top. So we have to change. There's a lot of work to be done. And today on the Old Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, we are going to tell you how to do it. I know you've probably been saying for years that I'm not happy with my situation in Mississippi, in the South, in the nation, in the world. And I guarantee you, folks, you shouldn't be happy with your situation because you have contributed to your downfall more than you think. And I'm going to prove that to you today. Now, some of you are not going to agree with it, and that's what I like. I like people that fail to disagree with reality and facts. And that's why this show is called the Old Henderson Real News Show. Organize, don't criticize the enemies of mankind. I'm talking about the human enemies of mankind. And that's why today, my good friends, we are going to be talking about education now in economic development and politics. That's what we will be putting our emphasis on. And as far as education concerned today, there are 5 different topics or considerations that I want to give you to think on. And you then will be able to determine some of the things that I didn't talk about that would help you in your Pacific area, because many of you have an excellent education. Another great number of you have excellent economic development initiatives in your lives. You are financially secure. And then there are others that have little education, very little economic activity, but they involved in what I call politics, social media. They know what it takes to have good government. Even though they can't finance it, they know what it takes to do so. And that's why you're going to get this information. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that the first thing you have to know about education is that there are some very, very sensitive areas that's changing in education in America, and especially in the world. And you have to know these things first, and you will be able to understand what's going on in your life, on the local level, on the state level, on the national level, on the international level, because everything I talk about today is interconnected, starting on the local level to the national level. And of course, we can't forget about international aspects of this matter of moderation. Now let's look at the first thing about education so you can see that if you are learning anything, you're not wasting your time. You're not wasting your time. So the first thing you must consider, ladies and gentlemen, worldwide, and especially those that have a need to make some advancement in education, economic development, and politics, is that education is an investment. That's the first thing you got to understand. If you don't invest your time, your energies, and your resources in learning something so you can become competitive, you will remain at the bottom of the pole of life, where you are down with the masses. You are down with the what I call the 90% that is just barely surviving, living day to day, and that's where you don't want to be. Even though you were raised that way in most cases. 90% of the people in the world are raised to be a hard-working person that's looking for a job or looking for some kind of benefit from a social or political institution, usually the government, to help them with their food, housing, medical aid, and jobs. I will show you today, if you put emphasis on education and training and learn the skills that are necessary, you won't have to worry about these things. So the first thing to remember, education is an investment. If you invest and do what I tell you today, learn, earn, save, and invest your education and your skills, for yourself, your family, and your community that you must develop, which you don't have one. I'm talking to black folks basically, but it's going to include everybody in the world. But black folks, you don't have a community at all, anywhere in the world that you control. You are neighborhood-based. You don't have any control in your area that is supposed to be your community. You don't own the economic engines. You don't own and control the educational institutions there. You don't own the banks. You don't own the big industries. You work at them at the lower level. The labor-intensified jobs. The level in the banks and other institutions where you're the receptionist, or you're what I call the money taker, not the order makers. You take the money when they come into the stores, when they come into the bank. Count the money, account for it, and turn it over to your supervisors and managers, and it heads up to the top, to the corporate entities, and they give you the minimum wage plus a quarter, and they keep 90% of that money for operations and dividends, and give it to the top elite in your county. And you are excluded. So I'm telling you now, folks, if you don't invest in education, you will find that you will not be able to take advantage of the second ingredient in education, and that is education pays. It pays, ladies and gentlemen, and the reason it pays, you'll see that if you get the training and the skill development you need, you will be in a position to increase your salary from 10 to 15 to 30% every time you learn a new skill. Some of you don't believe it, but I'm going to prove that to you today and show you that education pays. Thinking about education, dreaming about it, not going to help you. You have to get in there and learn something from someone that has the expertise to share with you. One that can show you and prove to you that if you do A, B, C, you will get E, D, F, an increase in your aspirations for life, an increase in your needs and demands, an increase in good health, and an increase in longevity. You live to be in your 80s and 90s and 100s. Some of you are going to be living in the next 30 years to 110, 15. If you get the education and the training you need, and you are going to see today how important that is, because you say, well, I know a few people that lived to be 102 and 3 and 5. They didn't have any education. I'm not talking about those folks. They were different people. They were trained different. They learned how to work hard. They learned how to eat well, not by choice, because of what they had available. Water, vegetables, fruits, nuts. That's what they ate. And now, folks, you all are highly educated, a lot of you are highly educated, and you eat everything that's made by chemicals and nothing made by nature. And the few things that some of you eat, you think are man-made. Nature is involved, but I can assure you that with all those extra chemicals they have in these foods, it's going to kill you. You're going to be sick, walking dead. You've heard me use this word a long time, for at least 15 or 20 years. So the fourth thing that you will learn today is that education is a relevant deal, because you have new skills you're going to have to learn. And the last one is that if you expand your education opportunities that you learn and share it with the poor in your community and the lower middle class, you're going to see a significant change. And the educational opportunities, the economic opportunities, and all the strong political opportunities in your area will expand to the point where you will become more inclusive. So you keep that in mind. And I want to just address the first one before I give you the meat to this program, where we said that education is an investment. And I want you to remember what old boy called Plato said about education. He wrote many years ago, probably 5 or 10 years ago, that if a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life. If a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life, which means that if you don't learn anything, you're going to be struggling all of your life. So if you're struggling, your family is going to struggle. If your family struggles, you're going to have all kinds of ills in your neighborhood. Since I told you before, you don't have a community. You will never have a community. So that's why you want to make sure you don't neglect education and be walking around here like the walking dead the rest of your life and sharing those same characteristics with your family, and therefore hurting your state, hurting your county, hurting your nation, hurting and causing problems throughout the world because you didn't do what you're supposed to do and become a competitive citizen in your area of operation. Of course, we say education pays because it shows that if you increase your education by 2 to 30% every year, we'll say from grade 8 to 9, grade 10 to 12, grade 14 to 16. When you know anything, overall, you have a raise increase in your salary from 5 to 50% every time you finish a program. But when you finish a program, you must include some new concepts, some new skills. And we call this that you must change your skill sets. Think about new things that you're going to learn. And here they are, folks, something that's scaring a lot of people. The new things that you must learn with the education you obtain these days. Most of this is not included in the education system in the public schools for the 90% of the people I'm talking about. Most of this is not included in the schools that are set up for the majority people, and the majority people include you. This education that I'm talking about today is set up for the minority, the 10% of the people of the world. The others will just hear the words, but they will not get into the scheme of knowledge that will give them the ability to show that you have to have changing skill-based factors in education. And here they are. What are those areas where you're going to have a new skill demand? Your new skill demand, folks, will be coming from automation, artificial intelligence, and the last one, technology, which includes all of these. If you are in a position where you are trying to learn something and you don't learn anything about automation and know how automation is going to change your life, eliminate millions of jobs and create millions of jobs through artificial intelligence, through machines, and then all of this is technology, you will find that I first have to learn what technology is, how to address these new changes that's going to take place in my life. And I need to start at the lower level and work my way through automation, through artificial intelligence, so I can become a technology expert. That's what it's all about. So now if you're going to become sharp in the automation, the artificial intelligence area, and in technology in general, there are some things you have to understand, folks, and that is you have to learn to invest in a new education model. A new education model that's going to be a little different. It's not all about reading and writing and arithmetic. That is basic, that you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn it. But if you don't learn it, you will not be able to use it, ladies and gentlemen. in your ability to do what you need to do. What are you going to learn after you get the basics in education? Reading, writing, math. You're going to learn the relevant skills that will apply 100% to the technology skills you're going to develop. Teach you all about automation. Teach you everything you need to know about what we call AI, artificial intelligence, and you use these skills in order to figure this out and to decide how it's going to be interrelated or interconnected. These areas are very important. You have to teach it to your child now when they are about 2 months old through their educational career that you sponsor. And then you're going to have to train them to take it when you leave them and do everything you can to move it and consistently learn everything they can about artificial intelligence, about how these computers and robots and others will be changing their lives, how they will be creating thousands of jobs and eliminating thousands of jobs. It's all about technology and how you can address it. How can you change this skill set that you have been taught in the past, where you have learned basic writing, reading, and math? You have to go to that next level, folks. The next skill level is, once you learn the basics in anything, you're going to have an investment in a new set of relevant skills. Relevant. Something that is current, that's going to help you today, tomorrow, and in the future, distant future, the next 100 years or so. I just told you in introduction on the old Henderson Real News show, Organize, Don't Criticize, that things are changing. You're going to live longer. And if you get the education that I'm talking about, and learn the skills that I'm talking about today, you will live longer, and you will not be the walking dead. You'll be a life changer. You'll be a life influencer. You'll be helping yourself, your family, and your neighborhood turn into a community. What are those skills? The most relevant that you must teach yourself and your children? Problem-solving skills. How to solve problems, ladies and gentlemen. Most of you don't know anything about it. You're going to have to learn what we call learning skills, where you look at a problem and you try to figure it out. How did this thing develop? What caused automation to come about in the world? Did we have enough jobs? Did we have too many jobs? Will automation help us any? You got to look at these problems and try to solve them for yourself, for your family, and for your people in your neighborhoods and community. And you do this by learning new skills, and one skill you're going to have to learn, folks, and learn it seriously. And that is how to read. And do the research when you read so you won't be overwhelmed with new words, new technology, and new ideas. The first thing you need to do when you start reading, and most of you are not going to do it, parents, if you're listening, I want you to think about this and then do it. Give your child what we call a reading assessment as soon as he's able to walk and talk. And you do this every 2 years. You need to learn his level of reading so you know what kinds of words, what kinds of concepts you need to teach him. You need to learn his deficiency level in reading, math, and writing. You need to know that he can communicate in sentences. You need to know that you can ask him a question, an open-ended question, and he can talk to you for 2 or 3 minutes without saying, I don't know. I think about it, that kind of thing. You don't want that. Anyone that's doing this, folks, not going to be the new man that I've been talking about. They'll be just surviving. They'll be the walking dead that I mentioned. The next thing you must keep in mind You got to have these communication skills so you can talk to a variety of people. And I'll get into that. We're going to take a short commercial and talk about our underwriters. And when I come back, folks, with part 2 of the Eldridge Henderson Real News Show, we will talk about the importance of communication skills and how you can use them to teach others in your area of influence and worldwide. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a minute or two. Thank you for listening.
Hey, have you heard about the Accountable Card? It's more than a card. It's a complete mobile banking service that's accountable to all of us. You'll get a no credit check debit card good anywhere Visa is accepted to make purchases, deposits, even get or transfer cash with an FDIC insured bank account managed from our smartphone app. There's even a pre-approved no interest line of credit if you need emergency cash. So why go to the bank when you can have ours in your pocket? Get accountable. Just download our app today.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? Earthblend Coffee takes pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, folks. We are glad to hear that you are with us here. I've been listening to some of the comments from you and looking at them and reading them. We're glad to have you back for part 2 of the Eldridge Henderson Real News Show, where we are talking about the importance of education in economic development and politics in a nation. The theme is, if you don't get an education now, you're not going to have a good future. I'm just going to make it clear to you. You have to understand that education is a demand, education pays, and education is a changing entity where you must learn new skills if you want to be competitive. And if you don't learn these skills, you will be, I told you in the introduction, the walking dead, where you're just walking around, confused, unsure of how you're going to make it next week, unsure of where your food, clothing, and shelter is going to come from, not able to attend the doctor's office because you didn't learn anything, therefore you didn't learn and earn and save and have anything invested to take care of yourself. Thus, you will suffer what I call the consequences of evil. You will live a life where you're going to have a lot of hardship. You're going to be in a position where people are talking when you are walking and doing the things that are necessary. We want to talk and walk and do the things that are necessary. Thank you very much. We are doing it, folks. We are doing the things we need to do because we're investing in education and opportunity. Now let's look at what we are saying about communication. I told you just before the break that communication skills are important in education because you have to learn to talk in sentences. You can't say closed marks like yes, no, I don't know. Please explain. If you are not going to be explaining and addressing issues with a knowledge base or an information knowledge base where you are trying to acquire more knowledge so you can become more competitive, you, ladies and gentlemen, are stagnant. You will not be moving forward. And this is why I say you must get that education you need, because the studies show that if you expand your education, if you raise it another year, a third, fourth, or fifth year, every time you raise your education and schooling by another year, the research studies show that you would have a 10%, 5 to 10% increase in your salary. if you use what you learn in this new technology, if you learn about robots, automation, if you learn about artificial intelligence, and first, before you learn about them, you have to go and research the definitions of these areas and find out what it means and how to obtain those skills. You can find it. Google it. If you don't have time to read it through other means, Google what you need to know and tell YouTube to teach it to you. Always use the Henderson strategy. Ask YouTube to tell you the beginning knowledge base of this area. Then you tell them, I want to know the immediate information about this after the first 100 years. And now the last thing you want to learn when you're researching new information and don't want to go and do the hard work, ask YouTube to tell you all the advanced knowledge, all the advanced theories that took place in this new area of knowledge during the last 10 to 15 years to the present. Simple, folks. That's what I call developing personal skills for self-management. You want to manage self. You can't expect the human enemies of mankind to manage you. If you do, they are going to be pleased because their job is to miseducate you, keep you dependent, keep you in a position where you don't have yourself locked in for self-support. You'll be looking out for their help. And the one thing that I've learned throughout the years about the human enemies of mankind is they want to keep you looking to them with your hand out, asking for food, clothing, shelter, jobs, and educational opportunity. And many times they will provide some of them for you because they know they have brainwashed you to the point where you've been miseducated so long and denied so long. When they give you opportunity, you won't even take advantage of it. A good example is voting. Black folks were killed and had a hard time for 75 years begging for voting in America, north, south, east, and west. Millions and thousands of them were relocated, killed, all kinds of ways because they were trying to vote. And now, after the enemies of mankind, the human enemies of mankind, allowed people in America and the world to vote in some of these areas, they don't take advantage of it. The same people that died for the vote, what we call democracy, are not taking advantage of these opportunities. And I guarantee you, the human enemies of mankind are all pleased. They are saying, we got them now. They are miseducated. They hate themselves. They want to be like me, but they can't do it. We fix them where they can't change. They can't become a new man. We're going to keep them dependent and ignorant and have them praying more and more for the Lord to do something, because we know if you want to do something for yourself, you have to dominate. You have to take control and provide the resources for self, for family, and for your community, so you can build a new city, a new state, a new nation, a new worldwide entity where you can help people move forward and do the things that are necessary. And the last skill, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to need to know if you want to be competitive in the world, you have to have social skills. I don't care what you say. You can know all you need to know about anything. But if you don't have social skills where you can relate with people internationally, with people of different ethnic groups, or people that have different languages, customs, and traditions, that practice new and different mores and folkways than you do, you are not going to be able to do contracts with those people. You're not going to be able to do memorandums of understanding with other people. If you don't know anything about their languages, and didn't learn anything when you were doing this training that I talked about in education, where I told you that education pays, you will not be able to change your life. You will not be able to change your status in the world. You will always be at the bottom of the pecking order in education, in what I call economic development and politics. So you folks, you have to learn them social skills. There's nothing wrong with learning 2 or 3 languages starting when you are 2 or 3 months old. That's the job of your parents. You don't necessarily need to have a tutor in those languages these days. All you need is technology. And your child can learn a new language starting when they are learning the home language, which might be English or Spanish or whatever it might be. They can still be learning 2 or 3 languages at the same time through technology. Some of the studies show if you want to do languages, learn about 15 minutes at a time. 15 minutes, a few words, how to produce the sound, a few words, learn the definition of them, a few words, put them into a sentence, a few words, put them into what we call a short conversation as, what is my name? Where do you live, my friend? What day is it? How can I learn more of this language? Simple sentences, simple information, social skill development, and you're working with people in your country and in countries throughout the world. That should start when you're at home, when you are at least a year or 2 old, when you learn how to speak the first language. Your parents, your schools, and your community organizations should have programs that's going to get you hooked up internationally with other parents, with other schools, with other community organizations in Asia and Africa, in what I call the Americas, other parts of the United Democratic Republics throughout Latin America, the Caribbean, and other areas. So folks, if you keep in mind that if you start investing today in education, your life will be stronger and better, and you will be able to make such a significant change in your life, in your family, and in that neighborhood, which will eventually be developed into a community, until you will be amazed. Now, what are you going to learn about this education? One thing you need to learn, and I'm telling you now from research and what I've known throughout the years, one thing to learn about education, since it pays, is you got to learn how to stop wasting your money. Some of you don't want to hear it because you've always had enough money to survive on, but you waste it. Still doing it. Buying things you don't need, a lot of consumer items. I talk about it all the time. Big cars that you can't afford. Car note, $900 to $1,100 a month. Big homes you can't afford. 5 bedrooms, 4.5 bathrooms on a 2-acre lot. Then you got to buy riding mowers, all kind of weed eaters, or hire somebody to come a couple of times a month and pay them $200 to $300 to take care of your outside surface of your house. The next thing you do when you don't get that education, you don't prepare to pre-plan for yourself and your family. What you don't do, folks, you don't get your final papers together. You don't prepare a will. Here you are, no education, no training, no money. You don't know the importance of preparing a will for yourself and for your family. You don't know how important it is to create what we call a life estate, where you're going to put a document together that will show your future sons and daughters, or the current sons and daughters and other relatives, that you have ample assets in your current state, in other states. Your current assets in one state might be your house, your major cars. I call them transportation units. You know, a lot of you have them all. You have a big car. You have a truck. You have a big wheel deal, a three-wheeler. Many of you have boats and other things that you need or don't need. But you need these things put into your estate, in your will, so you can get it to the next generation. You don't know about the healthcare directives or the power of attorney that you need to put together if you have mental or what we call physical limitations. You don't know that when you go to the hospital, you need to have those documents ready, already prepared. You might be too sick for the nurses and others to give you a document to sign saying, take care of me when I die. Take me to this church, this funeral home. My insurance is forthcoming at this agency. You have to have all this prepared. Education will help you get this will, this healthcare directive together. Because if you wait and go into a sick situation where you can't think for yourself, you can't walk and talk, you're not going to have the mental and physical ability to do that. You're just going to be languishing in the hospital or in the nursing home or in hospice care until you die. And then when that happens, folks, they don't know what to do with you. And I guarantee you, in some states, if they don't know what to do with you, they'll put you in a pauper's grave. They give you to the county and say, take care of this non-citizen. I don't know who he is. I don't know who she is. Do something with him. And most counties and municipalities throughout America have what they call a pauper's grave, or an area where they put unknown people that can't be identified, whether they can identify them or not. They bury those folks, and usually, since they are alleging or proclaiming that they don't know the name, just cover them up and put a little sign there with no name on it. Usually in the Christian areas, they put a cross up there. And time the wind blows, it falls. They're not going to prepare the cemetery and keep it decent, and you won't be able to find your loved one. That's why I'm telling you, folks, you have to learn things so you can earn and be competitive. And the other thing that education will do for you, once you learn that you must be competitive, you have to know that you must purchase adequate life insurance for self and members of your family. You must know that you must have what we call term life insurance on all of your family members, from those that are 1 week old to 18, if they live with you. Get them a term life policy. $2 to $3.5 million on each one of them. And that's very inexpensive. $13, $14 a month. Imagine if something happened to a child from 1 year old to 18 years of age, and you have a $2.5 million policy on this person, and you've been paying $13 or $14 a month or less, the family will be secure for the next 300 or 400 years if you did that consistently with all members of your family until they get a certain age. And as they get older, you have life insurance, and insurance is going to come up with all kind of medical side issues where you can have cancer insurance included, relocation insurance, and all kinds of things. And that's what you have to prepare for. You have to do this, folks, if you want to be a competitive person. And it all takes education and training. So you can learn these economic concepts. So you can learn how to deal with automation technology and artificial intelligence. Because it all boils down to, as I get ready to conclude, it all boils down to the fact that if you get your education and your training together, and you have the economic opportunities already addressed in your life where you can get to the point where you can have what we call the funds to live without begging and looking out for hand support from your family, your government, and others, along with what you're going to steal because you can't get it somewhere, you're going to take it from someone. But you don't find a lot of highly educated people in prison. Even if they are violating the law, they are every day. They're taking millions of dollars. But they also have millions of dollars, assets to millions of dollars to hire the best lawyers, to pay off the best judges. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it. And if they do get a sentence, it's going to be short. And that judge going to give them a wonderful opportunity for 6 months, 18 months at the best prison they have in the state, in the nation. That's what happens when you get that education, because you can pay for your sentence. Pay dearly. The more you pay, the less sentence you get. But if you're dead broke, no education, can't understand anything about how to prepare for the future, the human enemies of mankind will give you the short end of the stick. Here you are, committed some kind of practice that's illegal. Can't even get you an attorney. You can't afford an attorney. Who are you going to get? You'll beg the state to give you a public defender. And those boys and girls are paid by the hour in most cases, or they might be paid by the case. And they're not going to do a lot of work for you. Most of them won't, because they have to live. They have to work. And I'm getting ready to conclude, and I'll do part 3 on this next week, where we talk about the importance of education and training. And we want you to understand that if you don't have the proper education, which includes knowing about technology with specific emphasis on automation, robots, and artificial intelligence, and know how all of this is interconnected, you're not going to be the new man or the new woman in the world. You're going to be dependent on your family, on the government, and therefore you will end up living, suffering, and dying young, or dying old as a depressed mental person, what I call limited mental skills. You won't be able to think for yourself. And here you are, 70, 80, in your 90s, early 102 or 3, laying up looking, just rolling your eyes, can't say anything, wondering when you're going to die. So next week, folks, I'll do part 3 of how important it is to have the education and training and the skills you need to know, and how to apply these skills for yourself, your family, and your non-community that you are going to develop once you get the education and skill level enhanced, where you know how to look out for yourself and your family. So until next week, this is the L. Henderson Real News Show. I always tell you, organize yourself, your family. Don't criticize the human enemies of mankind. Their job is to keep you loving them, keep you miseducated, keep you disorganized. So you got to go and say, since people have a job to keep me ignorant, keep me miseducated, keep me misinformed, I am going to go outside of the education system and learn from others, from community organizations. Matter of fact, I'm going to read on my own. I'm going to go and use technology. I don't know much about it. That's what you might tell yourself. But I'm going to learn how to do certain things. I will be going to YouTube and Google certain things. That Google will tell me what I need to know once I put in a topic. Of course, in a few years, those names are going to change. They're going to disappear, but they'll be there in another name. But let's learn this. As I said earlier, I'll see you next week. Organize. Don't criticize the human enemies of mankind. Thank you very much.